Hello, my name is Laura Hackle, and today I will be covering part 2 of the Handrail series. In today's webinar, we will cover how to utilize the toe plate, grab bar, and handrail connections. The first I'm going to look at is the toe plate here. So if I scroll in here, I'm going to add a toe plate to this handrail. So if I double click on the handrail here, and I'm going to check on for toe plate, and this will be based on the walk side of the member edit screen. So the walk side, I'll want it on be the far side of my member line, and then I can go to my toe plate tab, and you can also check it on for here, the thickness of the toe plate, the width that we want it to be, the grade and surface finish. The finished floor distance will be from the top of the floor thickness to the bottom of the toe plate. So the floor thickness down here to the bottom of that toe plate. Then if you want the dimension type to be actual or vertical, this will be based on if you have a sloping handrail like we discussed in the first webinar. If it is an angle post, then the type of connection you want to that post. You can either have it be the angle post connection. If you have it be welded, you can have it be shot bolted or field bolted. And then this would be the whole information for that angle connection. I can also go to my ends here, and then there's a toe plate tab, and that's on for either end. So this is my left end settings and my right end settings. We have our toe plate setback. That can be a positive or negative dimension from the left end work point. So it'll be off of the center of the post, and if it's a negative dimension, then it will extend past the post. There's also, you can clip the top corner. That will clip the top left corner according to the clip dimension. So the clip dimension here, if I turn this on, my clip dimension will be the distance in my primary units, so ours will be inches, that will be clipped from the top left corner in the horizontal and vertical direction. So if this is greater than 0, this will be at a 45 degrees. So I'll put that at 2, just to show an example. And there's also an add a stabilizer angle. If I check that on, it will be the section size of the stabilizer angle, and this will be based off of the left end of the toe plate. So we have the grade, the surface finish, we have the length, so how long of the angle you want, and then dimension to the stabilizer. So that would be in the primary units again, from the bottom left corner of the toe plate to where the angle starts. So maybe I'll put that at 3. So if I click OK here and reprocess, we now have our toe plate. If I go over on this left end, for my left return, so that's basing off of the left end there, it came down 2 inches and over 2 inches, and then I have my stabilizer angle, and that came over in the dimension that I set it to be. Now we will see here that our toe plate is mitered. And let's say if I double click on this toe plate, it comes up as a piece mark for plate. Let's say I want that to get called out as a flat bar. So if I double click on this, go to my toe plate, and I see my width is set at 4. If I change this to 4.5 and click OK and process, and double click on this again, now you'll see my piece mark is an F9. if I go in my general information, you'll see the description, it's called out as a flat bar, 1/4 by 4.5, because I put 4.5 there for my width. How I got that was I went to my options, fabricator options, standard fabricator connections, and I added that section size in my miscellaneous connection flats. So I added it in here, FL 1/4 by 4.5. If that matches anything in this list, then it will get that piece mark for that toe plate. Another type of toe plate is maybe I want this to be a toe plate along my splice connection or my splice handrail. So I'm going to select all of these and edit, and I'm going to turn on my toe plate. I'll rotate around here to see that toe plate because it was on the far side. If I double click on that middle one, we have the toe plate, everything is the same. And now when I go to my ends, there's no longer an option to clip the left end because it's a splice plate connection. So we have the setback, so that would be the positive or negative dimension, and then you have an option for a connection. So if I drop that down, maybe I want this to be a plate. And I have the type, I can have it be bolted or welded. We have the thickness of the plate we want, the width, so that'll be the length that is up and down, just like how we changed the 4 and 4.5 for the toe plate. This will be for the connection. The length will be the edge distance, so we have the edge distance here, plus the hole to toe plate edge. So that'll be these two added together, plus the overlap. So all three of these added together will be the length. So that is why that's grayed out. The edge distance will be from the edge of the plate to the center of the first hole. The hole to the toe plate edge will be from the center of the hole to the edge of the toe plate. And then we also have our toe plate information. So we have the edge distance, the type, rotation, the diameter, and then the type here as well. So I'm going to leave this at plate. I'll change it to plate on both ends. And I'll just leave everything okay for this. And now I'm going to come over to this side. So this will be my right end that I'm going to be changing. So I go to my right end toe plate, my connection. I'm going to change this one to be a hole. So my toe plate hole information will be the exact same as what we previously saw in the center one. So I'll click OK here, and I'll just go ahead and change this one on my left side, the toe plate connection. I'll leave that as a hole as well. So now when I process, you see this one got a hole, this one got a hole as well, but now when I rotate around, the plate now is attached to this member, and then I put a hole into this toe plate for this member. And that's the same example over on this side. Let's say I also want to add a grab bar to this splice plate, or this splice handrail. So I'll edit these handrails again. And I'm going to add a grab bar. So now the grab bar is on the far side. We see the grab bar here, and then since it's a splice connection. So I'll double click on my center handrail again. There's a grab bar tab, just like the toe plate tab. I can add it here as well, or I can add it up in my general information. The type that I want for my grab bar, I can have it be a pipe or a tube. We have the section size, our grade and surface finish, the bend radius, so that'll be the radius that we have for the bend for the grab bar. We have our vertical distance from the center of the post to the center of the grab bar, and then we also have our horizontal distance. So the vertical distance will be the center of the top rail to the center of the grab bar. And then the horizontal will be the center of the pipe to the center of the grab bar. And then we also have our supports. The supports will be as round bar material for now, and we have our diameter, the grade, and the finish. Now if I go to my ends, we have a grab bar here as well for the tabs. We have a setback again. So these will be changing based on what your connection is set to for the left and right end. Right now it's set to splice. We will be doing one that has P-end or a post. For now we have the setback again, so how far you want that to set back from the center. And then we can add connections here. So I'm going to turn this on to add a connection. So that'll be in the center of that grab bar, the connection that is going to connect to the other grab bars. The type, you can have it be a pipe or a round bar. The section size, grade, surface finish. Then we have the length, so it'll be the total length of the connection. And then the stick through, how much it's sticking out of the grab bar to the next connection, or to the next grab bar. So I'll leave those okay. Now we touched on this briefly in the last webinar, but you can also, for my top plate, I can add a connection. That's going to be the exact same settings, and same with my mid rail. So I'll do that for both of these. And process. And then I'll turn my outside handrails to stick. So there you can see for my rails, we have the connection type, and then we also have a connection to our top rail and a connection for our grab bar. We can also add a grab bar to the stair that the handrail that we made along the stair as well. So in our previous webinar we had the stair right here, and then the handrail. So if I double click on it, I can add a grab bar. This will be on the far side again. I'll go to my grab bar settings. This is the exact same as previously. And then I can go to my ends. And for grab bar, it has changed because we no longer have it set to a splice connection. So for my condition, I can have it be a plain end, or I can return to post. So I'll set return to post for my left end. And for my right end, I'll leave that at plain end so we can see. So I can set a setback here for my plain end. It's grayed out if it's returning to the post. The corner, I can either have it be elbowed or mitered. If it's elbowed, then it has the radius that you want that to return back to the post. And then we also have our pipe post setback. That'll be how far the end of the grab bar material will set back from the center of the post. And then if we want it to be a fit to post, so that'll do a fit command. So I'll click OK to this, reprocess. So we have returning to the post on our left end, and then on our right end, I just have that set to a plain end. And then we also see our brackets here. The bracket will always be actual, but there is a request to have them parallel to the post for sloping handrail. Moving on from the handrail, let's say I want to start creating some connections here. So if I open up a view here, since I added in my handrail at the top of the nosing line, I'll want to, if I leave this at welded, I'll want to bring that up to that specific dimension. So to do that, I want to locate, which will need the top of support, which we'll get to in the member edit screen, but I need to find this dimension right here. So that will be vertical. So my top of support will be from where I want that pipe or that connection to start from. So I'm going to measure from my nosing line up to the top there, which will be 1 3/4. So when I edit my handrail, and if you go to the overview, my main section, it says the connection will be welded. I'm just going to leave it at that for right now, just to show that you can bring those posts up. And then I can go into my main section tab, and my connection, it'll say top of support distance. So like I said, that will be from bringing it from the bottom of that post up to the start of where I either want that connection to start or where I want that post to get brought up from. So I'm going to put in 1 3/4. And I will want to change that, since I do have a right return, I'll want to change that in my right return as well, since that type is welded. My top of support distance, I'll change that to 1 3/4 so it brings it up as well. So if I click OK and reprocess, now we see that it brought it up there in the vertical direction. So now let's say I want to add, since I'm on the top of that stringer there, I want to add in a base plate connection. So if I double click on it, in my overview tab or in my main section, so if I just go to my overview, in that main section category, my connection, I can drop this down to a base plate, and I will also want to do that for my right return. So I'll choose a base plate. Then I can go into my main section. For the connection, I could also change it here. For my connection, the top of support distance, so that's what we want our connection to start out at 1 3/4. Then we have our thickness. So that'll be the thickness of the base plate, the width of the base plate. So here's in the parentheses there, or the brackets there, it says what each of these get called out as. We have the grade and surface finish. My hole information, the center to center distance, I'm going to change that to 6. So I don't have my bolts going into my posts. Then we have our edge distance. So that'll be from the edge of the plate to the hole. And then we have the offset from holes. So that'll be from the center of the post to the center of the hole as well. The type, I'm going to change that to a short slot, and I could rotate that short slot if I'd like to. We also have our plate center information, so that'll be the reference to the left hole along the length, so that'll be LH. So that'll just be from the center of the post there to the center of the center of the hole. And then we also have the reference to hole along the width. So that'd be the O. And then we have also our bolt diameter and our type. Now I will want to change this again in my right return. So when I turn to right return, I'll want to change, since it's a base plate, I want to change my center to center distance to 6 as well. And then short slot. Now if I click OK, and now I have my bolts that came in here and then the base plate. If I double click on this again, so this was the connection, and I can also go into my intermediate posts, and there's a connection rotation. So I can either have the connection rotation be parallel along the work line, or I can do perpendicular along the work line. You can also change per post in the connection rotation, and currently we only have a 2-bolt pattern for the base plate, but there is a request for the 4-bolt pattern. I also could go into my ends here, and here's for the ends, my end posts. So the end post down here and the end post up on top. That would be for the connection rotation as well, if I want that to be, the base plates to be parallel along the work line, or I can change them to being perpendicular along the work line. So that's my left end, and my right end has the exact same. So then we can see that my top of connection, top of support started at that 1 3/4 up. Another connection that we can add to the top of a flange or top of a member would be a continuous bottom plate. So if I double click on my mezzanine level again, so that's another quick way to get to that level, and I want to add in another handrail quick, so I'll do handrail add. I'm going to offset that over a foot, so I'll come in my X, come over a foot, and then I'm just going to clear this out. So that was the top of steel for my left end, top of steel for my right end. I don't want any returns on this. I do not want a grab bar for this one. But my style, we've been leaving it at empty. I'm going to turn this to pickets. So when I turn that to pickets, I can go into my posts and pickets. And then we have our posts here. I'll leave those at pipe, and the section size, the grade, surface finish. There's the pipe top rail centerline setback, so that'll be how far it sets back from the rail centerline. And then if I want to fit to the top rail, and now I come down to my pickets. So I can have my maximum spacing, the type if I want it to be round bar, square bar, pipe, or tube, the diameter, grade, and the surface finish. So I'll leave that there, but let's say I don't want these mid rails. So I'll go back to my rails, go to my mid rail count, go to 0 for that. So I want it to go from my top rail all the way down to my continuous base, or the continuous bottom plate. So then I can go to my main section, or I can go to overview. It depends, whichever is going to get you the same. And the type, I'll take that off of base plate and turn that to a continuous bottom plate. So here we're going to have that continuous bottom plate. The top of support distance, I want that to go right flush with the points that I pick, so I don't need a top of support distance. And then the material information. So this will be the width, the thickness of that plate, the grade, and the surface finish. If I go to my intermediate posts, nothing I need to change here because it's all going to be the same along. So if I click OK and reprocess, I have my pickets that I put in there, and I have my continuous bottom plate. So that's another type of connection. The next I want to do is start adding in some connections coming into the web of my members. So those were the top of the flanges or the members. So let's say I want to start adding it in to the webs. Well, instead of completely adding in a brand new handrail, I could just go up to my mezzanine again. So I'm in my mezzanine, and I want to move this member line over to the right 4 inches. So I select my handrail, right click, move stretch members. I'll do it at the intersection construction line, and I'll move over 4. So I offset that over 4 inches, so then it will connect into the web of my channel. So if I rotate out, you'll see it still has that bent or the base plate in there. So I'm just going to open up my slope handrail. That's my grid line that I have. It'll take me right to that elevation again. And I want to change that. So I don't want it to be base plate anymore. I can just double click on it, go to my overview, and change my connection type from base plate to, let's say, bent plate. Remember, I will want to change it for the returns as well. So I'll change that to a bent plate as well. I'll go into my main section, go to my connection, and so here's the information that we have to make up that connection. So we have our thickness of the plate, the width, maybe I want that to be 6, and I'll change my thickness to a 1/2 as well. We have the post leg length, so that'll be from the face of the member that we're connecting to the edge of that plate. We also have our support leg length, grade and surface finish. We have all the hole information as well, vertical to first hole, hole spacing, hole gauge line on outstanding leg, the type that we want, if we want it to be short slot, standard round, oversized, or long slot. And then we have our bolt information here. Now, I will want to go to my intermediate posts. And now we have the connection side. So what side of my post do I want to connect this to? My intermediate posts. So do I want it to connect to the right side or my left side? This will be for all of them, and then I can come in here and individually change for specific posts. So if I wanted all of these to be the right side, but maybe I changed a couple, dropped them down to my left side if I wanted to. And then don't worry about the toe direction. That's based on if they're angle. And then the last thing I need to go to is my ends, because these will be for my end posts. And the connection side here, if I want it to be on the right side, or I can drop those down to be left as well. So if I click OK here and reprocess, so we see here I have these all be on the right side, and I changed 2 of them to the left side. I can come back in here again, and I can go to my main section, intermediate posts, and I could change those back to my right. So you can change them individually or for all of them. So those change back to the right side. If I scroll in here, so that's on the right side of the post. The next one would be a clip angle. So I can, again, change this in my main section or the overview. If I change that to a clip angle, we'll come back to the bolted angle. So I want to change it for both again. Oops. I went back to my main section and the connection. So here's my material information to make up that connection again. We have our section size, the length, grade, and surface finish. We have the same hole information and the bolt information. That'll be the same for my right return. And then we can go to my intermediate posts, and this is the same thing as the bent plate. The connection side, left or right, you can change them individually. And then you'll also want to go to your ends, and you can change those connection sides as well. So I could do left for my right and left ends posts. So I changed just for my posts to switch to the left end. Now, of course, I'd probably want to change that. But just showing an example that you can change it for your ends as well. The next connection will be a rectangular plate. So I'm going to go to my mezzanine level. And I added in a handrail already. I haven't added it on to the, I haven't added on to the rectangular plate yet. But how I added it in, I offset that from the channel face. I want half of the outside of the diameter for the pipe, so this was like 1.5. So the outside of the diameter was 1.9, and then I divided by 2 plus the plate thickness that I want to use of 1/2. So I offset this over 1 7/16. So now I need to edit that handrail. So again, like I stated in the first webinar, I can go over here to my model tree. It's highlighted. I can double click on it to edit it. And I want to change that to a rectangular plate. So my overview, for my connection, I can change that to a rectangular plate. There's no returns on there, so I don't need to worry about that. Then I can go to my main section and connection. And the thickness, I want to be 1/2 inch. The length of that rectangular plate. And then we have our grade, the surface finish, the hole information again, and then the bolt information. Maybe I want to change that to a short slot. If I go to my intermediate posts, there's no information I need to figure out here because it's just going to be centered. Now there is another option here, another tab called a closure plate. The closure plate I can add on. It'll come right at the end of that post there. It'll be the thickness of that closure plate I want, the grade and surface finish, and if I want to add a drain hole and the diameter of that drain hole. Now since I didn't have to change anything in the intermediate posts, in my ends I will not need to change anything either. So I can just click OK here, reprocess. Now when I rotate out, I have my rectangular plate, and then I have that closure plate as well. The next connection we're going to show is a shear tab connection. So if I go back to my mezzanine, and I want to add in a shear tab connection coming into the webs of these beams, I'm going to add in a handrail, and I'm going to use my offsets. I'll come -6 in my X, -6 in my Y. So that's my top of steel for my left end, my top of steel for my right end. Then I can zero out my offsets, and since we have those temporary lines that come in for 2015, I don't need to use all the construction lines to offset that, so I went around 6 inches offsetting from the member lines. The connection I want is going to be a shear tab. So we've gone through the base plate, bent plate. We're going to come back to the bolted angle. We did a clip angle, continuous bottom plate. The plain end will not get a connection. That'll just be like how we would if we were putting in other members. Rectangular plate, and then the shear tab. So I'm going to change the shear tab for both of my right return and left return. Then I'll come into my main section here in my connection. Here's the information for my shear tab. So we have our thickness of the shear plate, the length, I'm going to put that to 6. We have our grade and surface finish again, our hole information. We have our bolt information, the exact same, and then our support information. So the support information will be the thickness of the support. So we have the support right here, the length, the hole edge distance, and then the hole type. In our intermediate posts, the connection side, I'm going to change this for all of them. Right now they're centered. I'm going to change them to right. So you can have the connection side of that post again, center, left, or right. I'm going to change that to my right. Then remember, I'll need to come into my ends here, my connection side. I'm going to change these to right as well. Click OK. Process. Now if I rotate out, I have my shear tab in there. And that's for, this is my main section, my right return, and then we also have my left return. The last connection too that we'll do for our pipes handrail is a WT. So just like the overview, the connection, I'll set this to a WT. Go to my main section, the connection information, we have our section size, the length and grade, and then we have our hole information, and then our bolt information. Now for the intermediate posts, we have that connection side again. I'll just change all of these to left, and I'll leave my ends, I'll leave the connection side at right. One more thing before I hit OK, I'm going to go ahead and take off in my main section the closure plate. And for future, when we start adding in our angle handrail, the only time that it will become grayed out if I go to add an angle handrail, so I could not uncheck it if my posts are set to angle and not pipe or tube, which we'll see. Same with your grab bar. So as long as if I go to my overview here, as long as my posts are set to pipe, if I change those to angle, they gray out. So if I went to my main section and closure plate, it gets grayed out there. So if it's ever grayed out, it's because it's probably set to angle. You'll just need to set it back to pipe and then uncheck it and hit OK. So I'll click OK here and reprocess. And then I have my WTs. And they all went to the left. And then we have our ends, and they went to the right. I'm going to go back to my mezzanine here. So I had another framing situation similar to this one, and I only offset it 3 inches. Well, I wanted to change this to an angle. So that was the handrail for the posts, or for the pipes. Now I want to add in my connections for angle. So if I double click on this, I'll want to set I'm not going to have a toe plate on here. I want to set my pipe, my top rail overview to an angle, my post overview, I'm going to set that to an angle, and my mid rails I'll set to an angle as well. Now when I come to my main section, I want this to be a shear tab, and in those brackets there it says angle. Well, those are meant for the angle posts. So I'm going to set that to angle. I'll set my left return to angle, the shear tab angle, and I'll set my right return to shear tab angle. Click OK. Actually, sorry, before I click OK, I'll go into my main section. Connection. And this is pretty much the same as our shear tab. The material information, we have our thickness, grade and surface finish, and then our hole information and our bolt information. Now when I get to my intermediate posts, we have our toe direction that will be based off of for the angle pipe, or sorry, the angle posts. So I want my toe direction to be right, and then the connection, if I want that to be on the right side as well. Like I said, you can change this down here in the table, and then you'll also want to go to your ends, and here's your toe direction and this connection side as well. So if I click OK, we'll see what that gives us. So I would have wanted to set that out a little bit more. Let's go over here and try this one. I didn't offset that enough. So my overview, I'll change this to an angle, 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 and then change these to a shear tab angle. There we go. The last connection will be in our mezzanine again. So I'm just reverting back to the original view. And I want that last one to be the bolted one. So if I'm going to snap to the surface of the channel here, and then I'll add in my last handrail. I'll offset that up a foot. Oops, sorry, in my Y. To the face of that channel. I do not want any returns. So it's still set to angle here. My connection, I'm going to change that to be a bolted angle. Like I said, I don't have any returns there, so I can go to my main section, connection, and here's our hole information. So that'll just be vertical to first hole, my hole spacing, the edge distance, the gauge, what type I want that to be. I'm just going to set that to a standard round. And then our diameter and type. If I go to my intermediate posts, then we have our toe direction. What toe direction do we want these to be? And if I go to my ends, we have our toe direction here as well. Right, and this one's changing to left. So if I click OK, process. So here we have our bolted angle. So that's right to the face. That concludes today's part 2 of the handrail series. We have covered how to utilize the toe plate, grab bar, and connections for the handrail.